Good morning. Today we're continuing to work with those angles and we are putting them into triangles, and we're going to be working with those triangles, talking about the different types of triangles, classifying by sides and classifying by angles. So we are going to be learning all of the different vocab words for those triangles. It is very important that we pay attention to which one are angle names and which ones are side names, because we need to know the difference. So, to start us off, we're going to write a definition of a triangle. So, a triangle is a polygon. So, it is a closed shape with three sides and three angles. And I forgot to pass out that notes page. So Emma, I'm going to have you pass out the notes, please. So our angles, and this is important, angles always sum to be 180 degrees, no matter what, no matter which type of triangle it is. You add up the three triangle angles, it will always, always, always be 180 degrees. It could be an isosceles triangle, a scalene triangle, an equilateral triangle, doesn't matter which type of triangle we're going to be learning about. The angle measurements will always, always, always be what? Say it again, Adeline. 180 degrees. Everybody say it with me. Triangles, angles, measure 180 degrees. I'm trying to drill this in because this will come back over and over again. Triangles always, always, always equal 180 degrees. Supplementary angles, that straight line, 180 degrees. These are numbers that we see a lot. We need to learn them. So, triangle, we know what a triangle looks like. We learned that many years ago. The three sides, tri means three. Angles, we know what angles are, so the triangle has three angles. So because it has three angles and it's a polygon, it's closed, it has to have three sides. Alright, let's learn about these different triangles that we have. Some of these you will have heard of before. Some of them you'll say, ooh, I remember doing that, but I don't quite remember what it means. And some of them you might say, ooh, I've never heard that. So let's really pay attention to the different triangles names by its sides and the triangle names with the angles. We're going to start with our sides. So our first triangle is a scalene triangle. So our definition is going to have to do with the side lengths. So a scalene triangle, has anybody ever heard of a scalene triangle? A couple of us are saying, ooh, I've heard that. Do you know what a scalene triangle is? Do you remember it? Oh, without looking at the definition that I just gave you. Yeah, you know it without looking? What is it?
It's like a triangle that is equal sides and
The triangle side lengths are all different. So it has no congruent sides. Remember, congruent means the same. It has no congruent sides. So you could put all three sides have different measures. So if we were to draw a picture of that, we could draw a triangle that has three different lengths. We're not just going to draw the picture, we have to label it. We're gonna label it, not getting a ruler out and making sure, but using numbers that make sense. So if I said this length was 4, this one looks like twice that, so I put 8, this one's a little shorter, I put 7. Right, so we need to show that we know a scalene triangle has to do with side lengths. And all 3 sides are going to be different lengths. Next up, we have an isosceles triangle. What is an isosceles triangle? Adeline?
Like the
Triangles have slanted sides. That's just kind of the definition of becoming the triangle's gonna have slanted sides. Sophie? 2 sides are, what's the mathy word we're gonna use? Congruent. So an isosceles triangle has 2 congruent sides. So 2 are the same measure, 1 is different. So if we were to draw a picture of an isosceles triangle, we can't just have the picture, we have to label it so we can show that we know what we're talking about. Congruent sides can be shown by having those hash marks. That shows I put it on 2 sides that look to be the same length, so those hash marks tell me they are congruent. 3rd side doesn't have it, so I know 2 sides are congruent. I can also put numbers on there. I can put 7 and 7 and 4. So I'm showing I know these 2 are congruent, they are the same number, this one is different. So when you have to draw a picture of a triangle, you have to label it. Our last side triangle is an equilateral triangle. What does equilateral mean, Bridget? All 3 sides are congruent. So all 3 sides are congruent. So when we draw a picture of that congruent triangle, you're going to try to make them all look to be the same. Lateral means side. Okay? That equilateral triangle is going to be measured by its sides. So we're going to show all 3 sides are congruent. They all have that same hash mark. You could put numbers on it. If I put a 6 there, I have to have a 6 there, and I have to have a 6 there. So you could label it with either just the hash marks, you could label it with the numbers. They all have to be the same. How are we feeling about that? Okay. So, 3 triangles that are classified by sides. So, when you are drawing your pictures, you want to actually pay attention to these. We don't have curves. Numbers don't have curves, okay? All right, so now let's look at our angle triangles. Classifying triangles by its angles, there are 4 of them. Our first one is an acute triangle. Where have we heard that before? Aiden? Yeah, one of our last objectives, we were talking about acute angles. Now we have acute triangle. So we know it's going to be talking about the angles of the triangle. What do you think an acute triangle means? Lila? Super close. It's not just one angle is going to be acute. All 3 angles are acute. So an acute triangle has 3 acute angles. All 3 angles are going to be less than 90 degrees. So when we draw a picture of that, we want to make sure that we're drawing a picture that has all acute angles. And now I need to label it. How do you think I would label this, James? So I could do 30 degrees. And then now you said do another 30 degrees. So that's 60 degrees. What would my last angle have to be? Not like. What do triangles always equal, James? Nope. 180 degrees. So if I have 30 and 30, what would that angle have to be? Uh-oh. If that angle is 120, is it an acute triangle? No, it is not. So we have to be really careful how we label an acute triangle. We have to look at those angle measurements. If I put 30 degrees here, now I'm thinking about that 180 is our magic number, and they all have to be acute. What do you think I could put in there? If I do 60 degrees here, what does this angle measurement have to be? What does it have to be? 90. Is 90 an acute angle?
No.
It's not. 90 is a right angle. Okay, so I can't do 60 there. What is something that I could do there? Aiden? Maybe I could have 80 degrees. If this is 30 degrees and that's 80 degrees, what does this angle have to be, Lila? 70, because 80 plus 30 is 110. 70 degrees then would bring us to that magic 180. So we have to make certain that all 3 angles are acute and they all add up to be what magic number, everyone?
180.
180. Okay? Why do you think I'm drilling it in 180, 180, 180? Why am I getting so into that, Lexi?
Because if there's a question on the test, you know,
Yeah, I guarantee this objective is on the test. I also know that this is a very common mistake that kids make all the time. They forget that their angles need to equal 180 degrees. And they might give me 3 acute angles, but if they don't equal 180, it will be wrong. So you have to pay attention, making sure that all your angles are acute and they add up to be 180. Next triangle is a right triangle. Think about what we know about the acute triangle. What do you think the definition of a right triangle is? Lila? There is one right angle. That is, like you said, 90 degrees. Why can there only be one right angle? Lila?
because if there's 2, then you can only do 3.
Yeah, if we had 2 right angles, that right there equals 180 degrees. I have 3 sides, but is it a triangle? Mm-mm. So our right triangle only has one right angle, and then we have 2 other angles that we need to label. What do you think I could put in as measurements for that, Aiden? I could say this one might be 50 degrees. What would my other angle have to be then, Aiden? If I put 20 on there, 20 plus 50 is 70. 70 plus, we know our right angle is 90. 70 plus 90 is 160. It has to be 40 degrees. 40 plus 50 is 90, 90 plus 90 is 180. So you, again, have to make sure that adding up all three angles equals 180 degrees. Next triangle. This is an obtuse triangle. What do you think the definition of an obtuse triangle might be, Lexi?
One obtuse angle.
It has only one obtuse angle. Why do you think there is just one obtuse angle? Adeline? We just saw you can't have two 90-degree angles. You can't have two obtuse angles because we can only have three sides. It's not going to equal 180 degrees. It's not going to be three-sided. So you are going to show, when you draw an obtuse triangle, you're going to show one triangle that is bigger than 90 degrees. How do you think, what kind of measurements do you think I could put for this one, James?
100 degrees.
So that 100 degrees I'm going to need to make sure is in that obtuse angle. What could I put for my other two angles, James?
40.
So maybe 40 here, and then what would be here, James?
40.
Another 40. 40 plus 100 equals 180. Are those the only angle measurements I can put? No. I can put any obtuse angle in there between 90 or 91 degrees on up. We're not going to put 180 degrees because we need angle measurements for our other two angles. Right, so your two acute angles, you need to make sure that all three together would equal 180 degrees. Last triangle, the equiangular triangle. Think about what we know about the equilateral triangle. What do you think equiangular means? What do you think, Lexi?
300 angles.
Instead of three congruent sides, this one is angular, so it's three congruent angles. So you're going to draw a triangle that looks to be all the same size. What measurements could we put in for these angles, Sophie? Why does it have to be 60 degrees, Sophie? More than that, we know that they're acute, so it has to be less than 90 degrees. Why does it have to be 60, Lexi?
Because it has to equal 180 and they all have to be 38.
It has to equal 180 degrees, and they have to be the same measurement. 60 plus 60 is 120, plus 60 is 180. Equiangular triangles, equilateral triangles, always have that angle measurement of 60 degrees. Always. Because we couldn't say 50, 50, 50. That would be 150 degrees, not 180. It has to be 60 degrees if they are all the same measurement, because they have to total exactly 180 degrees. Any questions about our angular triangles? All right, let's look at our work for today. First, we have to classify each triangle by its angles and its sides. So if I look at my first triangle, how would I classify that by its angles? Emma? Yeah, they're all acute angles. So it's acute. How would I classify that by its sides? Lila? Isosceles. Because we have two side measurements that are the same and one that is different, I know it is an isosceles triangle. So when it says to classify by both, you need to put both names on there. It is an acute isosceles triangle. So when it comes time for the test, if you should have all of these names on your help sheet, so you should know how to spell it. But if you spell isosceles with an S instead of a C, am I gonna mark it wrong? No. It's not a spelling test, but I do need to see it looking like the word isosceles. I do need to know that that's what you're writing. It can't be some crazy word, okay? So you're gonna try your best, have it on your help sheet so you can spell it the best that you can, and I will know that you mean isosceles. The next two you are going to label on your own. Put the angle name, put the side name. Let's look at our second page. Draw the triangle described and label with each with side lengths and angle measures. So we're going to, they have what its side name is and what its angle name is, so we're gonna label all of it. So if we look at an acute scalene triangle, acute means they're all small angles. Scalene means they're all different side lengths. So I'm gonna draw a triangle that has different side lengths and all small angles. Now I need to write down my labels. So if I look at this, my side lengths, it doesn't matter what numbers I choose, as long as they're all different. So my longest side, I can call that a 10. This side is a little bit shorter, maybe that's a 9. And the shorter one, maybe I'd put a 6. They're all three different. It's scalene. Acute, what is an acute angle that I could call one of these? James?
5 to 6, it's 40.
So maybe this is 40 degrees. What other measurement can I put for an angle, James?
80.
That one looks like it might be 80. What does my third angle have to be, James?
85.
So if I have 80 plus 40, that's 120. Could I have 85, James? What do I have to have?
You have to have, 40.
If I put another 40, that would be 160.
60.
I have to have this one be 60. 120 plus 60 gets me that magic 180. So you have to make sure all three angles equal to be 180, otherwise it will be wrong. All three angles, for all of your examples, all three angles have to equal 180 degrees. Here's the thing with my isosceles triangle. We need an obtuse isosceles. So I have two sides that are the same. When I have two sides that are the same, what else am I gonna get? Any guess? This is an obtuse, so this would be 100, let's say 120 degrees. If I have two side lengths that are the same, going into that side, these two angles are going to be what? The same. They will be congruent. If we have two congruent sides, we have two congruent angles. So what would those angle measurements have to be? Adeline? 30 plus 30 is 60. 60 plus 120 gets me my 180. So when you have an isosceles triangle, those two angles will always be congruent also. The two sides are congruent, the two angles will be congruent. Don't forget to fill in your side measurements. You can do the equal angular by yourself. Let's look at our next part. Determine if the given statement is true or false. If it is false, why? So, an acute triangle has two angles less than 90 degrees. True or false? Maddie?
False, because an acute angle has, all the angles are less than 90.
Yes, so it's false because it shouldn't say two, it should say 3 angles are less than 90 degrees. So if it is false, you have to fix it. What would make it true, or why is it false? And then we have our time for review. So if you need to look back at past objectives, you need to draw and label. So you're going to draw the picture of what vertical angles look like, and then you're going to put in those angle measurements to make it accurate. So draw and label. So you have to put your labels in with it. Any questions on today's assignment? All right, if you are watching this at home, I hope you are well, and I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget, if you finish that math packet number 9 video is on my YouTube channel, and Khan Academy is due Thursday night.